Welcome back. Now, in the past few weeks, the country has experienced severe weather conditions, with Gauteng being the hardest hit with heavy rains and thunderstorms. Climatologists are warning of more intense weather conditions are due to global warming and linked to climate changes. Now, to help us understand the impact of climate change on the country's recent extreme weather conditions, I am joined by Dr. Roland Ngam, who is a climate expert. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Now, South Africa is experiencing above normal rainfall with the La Nina weather pattern reoccurring this year. Can you just unpack to us what is meant by the La Nina weather patterns?
Well, so basically, South Africa is coming out of a multi-year drought, about 10 years. But at the same time, what is happening is that the oceans are warming, and because the oceans are warming, you really have high-pressure systems. And these high-pressure systems, what happens is that they will typically cause rain clouds to gather and bucket down. And what experts have also been saying is that when it is bucketing down, you will have about a month's worth of rain in about a day. Recently, what we saw in KwaZulu-Natal a few months ago, about 300 to 400 millimeters of rainfall happening in the space of 12 hours. And so a lot of that really should be expected, and that is as a result of the heating ocean and increased CO2 in the atmosphere.
So, Doc, I mean, the World Meteorological Organization predicted a triple dip in La Nina, meaning that it's now extended over a 3-year period. Is this a strong indication that climate change is having even more worse effects in the world?
Well, certainly. Let's remember that typically predictions used to be able to give very accurately after how many years or so we would have these cycles occurring. But now there is a lot of disruption, and the disruption really is as a result of increased heat in the oceans. And because of, remember that the ocean surface is really big as well. And because of that, you have rising water levels, and you will have a lot more pressure systems happening. And so it is much harder to predict these weather events very accurately. And that is why sometimes our meteorological services are also struggling to keep up.
You speak of disruptions, Doc. Are you referring to the emissions that we as people on the planet are putting out onto the earth that's making then the changes in climate and the changes in weather so unpredictable?
Well, from 1850, that is the Industrial Revolution, to present times, our anthropogenic lifestyles, that is heavy reliance on fossil intensive energy sources, have caused an increase in CO2 emissions, greenhouse gases, and so on. South Africa, for example, burns a lot of coal to produce electricity. And obviously, we need to extrapolate a number of countries like the UK, the United States of America, China now, which is building a lot more coal capacity, and so on. The combined effect of all of that is that there is a lot of CO2 that is already locked into the atmosphere. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of the extreme weather events that we've had this year. Incredible drought in Europe, and France had to shut down many of its nuclear power plants because there was simply no water to cool down those plants. Drought in the United States of America, and an unusually busy cyclone season in the Southwest Indian Ocean earlier this year. A lot of these things are really federating to cause all the things that we are seeing now. And because CO2 emissions are already locked into the atmosphere, we should expect a lot more of these extreme weather events going forward.
So, Doc, does that mean that there's no reversing these effects in the medium term?
Let's put it this way. The Conference of the Parties process really was launched in Rio in 1992, first one 95, and the decisions really was that there was an acknowledgement that to roll back some of the effects that we are seeing, we need to cut CO2 emissions by about 50% by 2030. Our lifestyles have not changed. We are seeing an increase in CO2 and carbon fossil intensive production processes and so on. Before COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, if you remember well, UNEP said there is no credible path to 1.5 degrees. After COP27, there is no credible path to 1.5 degrees, which means that we are going to see a lot of what is happening until we decide to expand very rapidly green technologies, expand rapid transit systems. We build our houses better so that we don't use so much all these air conditioners and heaters and so on. All of these things really have to be done very, very quickly. And it is really difficult to see humanity moving with the kind of speed that we need at the moment. That is why I'm a bit pessimistic.
In your pessimism, though, Doc, are there any things that you could give to people on the ground for them to implement on a daily basis in order for us to be able to reach towards those NDPs and Millennium Development Goals when it comes to climate change, instead of us just waiting for the policies from your COP27s and so forth to be implemented over a number of years?
Yes, I've made arguments, for example, in the Daily Maverick that the South African government should ideally be giving families subsidies to set up rooftop solar. Rooftop solar, for example, will help reduce load shedding very, very quickly. This can be done within 48 months. Secondly, we need to change our agriculture and really encourage and invest in smallholder agriculture. I'm happy that President Ramaphosa has said many times that now we can really use a lot more of 5 hectares or less to set up many more farmers. Also, we need to build our houses better or improve our houses so that we do not use the kind of heaters and air conditioners that we are using. And also, finally, possibly improve our transit systems, get more trains and more buses. This will reduce the number of cars on our roads. And obviously, because South Africa cannot do all of this on its own, because emissions are equal opportunity polluters. Pollution in China affects South Africa equally. And so Africa must use multilateral processes to pressure high polluters like India and China and the United States, etc., to reduce their emissions.
So, Doc, in 2008, we saw what was dubbed the Soweto floods. Earlier this year, we saw the April floods that happened in the KZN, and then again this week, more floods happened in the Soweto region. Are there specific places and regions that are more susceptible to flooding, and if so, why?
Well, there is a very clear reason. Because of the high pressure systems, certain areas that are in the path of these pressure systems will get a lot more rain. And obviously, vegetation also has to do with it, because really plants, where you have a high aggregation of forests, for example, and trees, you will have a lot more rain. And so a lot of these things really are connected. And we're also seeing that in the southwest Indian Ocean, towards the east coast of South Africa, there is a very busy high pressure system. And so, yes, certainly a lot of this is connected with location.
So should the people of Gauteng then brace themselves for more damaging rains, especially now in the December season and leading up to April next year?
Certainly, and I'm sure you have seen this as well, that although it is really bucketing down in some parts of the country, other parts really are struggling to get water. Other parts are struggling to fill dams and so on. And so these situations, the meteorological services are predicting, are set to continue at least on the short term. And I think we can also take those as positives because we're coming out of about a decade of very little rain. And so the agricultural output and so on, we should take advantage of these to set up these processes, improve our dams, improve our reticulation systems, and see how to leverage that. It is not necessarily all bad, but also just quickly as well, insurance companies can also start setting up better predictions for the systems and also to help homeowners because they are also going to be hit harder going forward.
All right. Thank you for that conversation. That's Dr. Roland Ngam, who's a climate expert, speaking to us there about the impact of climate change on the weather on the back of seeing so many flash floods that have taken place, especially in regions such as Soweto. Thank you so much, Doc, for your time this afternoon. It's appreciated.